Hello world, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be rebuilding the Gumroad website in Webflow. Now, if you guys have followed my channel, you might have seen that my previous video was also about building this exact website in code. So you might be wondering why I'm releasing a video doing it in Webflow when it's the same exact website. Well, that's because I plan on creating a video where I compare Webflow, code, and another no-code platform, and I thought the best way to sort of test it and see how well they work is by building the same website in the three of them and see what some of them can do and what the others can't. Okay. So yeah, that's. I also wanted to show you guys like what I was actually building, just to give you guys a better idea. But yeah, so now let's go ahead through this website and just see what we have here. So we have a couple of links, as you can see over here, and we also have some buttons in our nav bar. Now, you can see that in this sort of website, there's a lot of parallax interactions, like you can see the ones there, like that, okay? And we also have a looping text interaction, okay? So moving on, we can see that a lot of this website is pretty similar, a lot of bold text pattern and sort of colors, right? Now, as we keep scrolling, you notice that stickers, the parallax animation, and yeah, that's pretty much the whole website. Now, if we hit inspect, we can see that this website is fully responsive. So as you can see, we have a responsive nav bar, and when you click on this sort of hamburger menu, it turns into a cross, and we get this really nice sort of effect where the nav bar pops out and the color changes, okay? For the sort of breakdown of this website, let's just get right into it. So our first section is going to be the hero, and it's going to look like this. We're going to have some text, a button, and this sort of sticker layout that we have going on here with this sort of parallax animation. So let's go ahead and build that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is grab a div, okay? And, I'm going to call this div grid halves, okay? And the reason I'm giving it a name like grid halves is because, again, a lot of this website is going to be reusability, or the point of this website is going to be reusability, because this sort of grid that we have here, where it's like two columns, this sort of layout is going to be repeated multiple times throughout our website, so all across this sort of area right here. And so it's important to not just name it something like hero and then have to name each and every section something different, even though we can already reuse this. So yep, this is going to be called grid halves, and it's going to be display grid, okay? There's going to be 0 gap, okay? And it's going to be 2 columns and 1 row. Now the next part is to build this sort of padding that you see around here. Now that's also going to be reusable, right? Because the padding around this section right here is the same as the padding around this section, you know? So for that, we're going to create a class called, you guessed it, padding. So I'm going to place that inside of here and just call it padding, okay? Now it's going to have maybe 4 EM of padding all around, okay? Now EM is an alternative to pixels, okay? So pixels are a very sort of rigid static value, you know? Then 10 pixels in tablet mode is going to be the exact same thing as 10 pixels in laptop mode and mobile mode and so on, right? But EM, if we sort of change values in, like, for example, the body, the EM value will change based on that sort of style in the body. And that doesn't make too much sense right now, but I will explain as we sort of keep going. But for now, just put down 4 EM as our padding, and I'll explain in a little bit, okay? Now, the next part is to add this sort of background class, right? Now, you may be thinking, we can just add a background color to the padding, right? Well, this isn't good for a bunch of reasons. Now, this padding class, again, is going to be reused so many times across this website, right? And, okay, we're using it in this sort of pink section here, so if I give it a background color of pink, but then what about when I want to use it for the section right here, right? Then I have to sort of make a combo class called yellow and so on, and it takes a while to get that done. So that's why it's easier to just make a class for that as well. So we're going to make a class called background, and it's going to be called background pink, okay? Now, this is just going to have a background color of pink, but I'm going to place the padding inside of this background pink class, and then I'm going to just add, okay, so I'll put all the colors down in the description down below, but yes, this is the color, okay, and we have our padding inside, okay. The next part is to build these headings and these text elements, right? So for that, I'm going to drag in a div. Okay, this again, reusability, so this is going to have a class of heading 1, okay? Now this, I'm going to change the font to be Nido Sans, okay? And then just make the color be black, okay? Now, as you can see here as well for our heading 1, right? The size is default set to 38 pixels. But again, because of our how we're going to be making this website responsive, we really don't want to change or use a pixel value for each one of these breakpoints, right? Because then we would have to go and change it at every single breakpoint, and that gets very sort of repetitive when we have multiple headings, right? So for example, if it's 38 pixels now, right, when I go down to tablet mode, it's still going to be 38 pixels. And then when I go down to mobile, it's still going to be 38, and then when I go down to, again, mobile again, then it's still going to be 38, right? Now this doesn't look like too much of a problem right now, but let's add a paragraph element, and then I'll sort of show you more as we keep going. So paragraph 1, okay? So this, I'll leave it at 14 pixels, and then let's keep going, right? Okay, so it looks fine in tablet, but then we get to mobile, and then it gets to be a little bit too small and starts looking a little bit weird, right? So what we need to do is sort of change the font sizes to be something different. So let me grab my heading, and this heading is going to have a font size of, let's say, 5 EM, right? Now you might be wondering what this EM value actually is, right? Because if it's just like pixels and like, you know, like it's a static value, like EM is already decided, then there's no point in using it, right? Well, here's what EM is sort of based on, you know? I'm going to go back to my background, or sorry, my body right here, and I'm going to change the font size in the body to something like 16 pixels. Now, as you see, the heading itself actually grew bigger. So yeah, 5 EM right now, right? Let's say I make it something like 3 EM, okay? And then I'll go back to my body, I'll make it even bigger. I'll make it something like 20 pixels, right? The font size for the heading automatically grows, okay? So how that's happening is we are setting the font size to be EM, and this EM is being multiplied by the body font size, so by 16, to give this sort of static, this sort of calculated value, okay? And that wouldn't be the case with pixels, so that's what this is helping out for, okay? And actually, when I go back to my body, I might as well set some of my font sizes here, so, or fonts here. So this whole website is going to be using the same font, so I might as well set that here, and it's always going to be black, so I'll add that too. And I'm actually just going to leave it at 14 pixels for now. Okay, now let's go back to our paragraph, and I'll change these settings here, so I'll make it 1 EM, or 1, okay, so see how nothing sort of changed there, right? So the font size right now is 14 pixels, right? But then, when I go back to the body, the font size here is also 14 pixels, right? Now if I go to the paragraph and I make it 1 EM, well, it stays the same, right? And that's because that 1 is being multiplied by the 14 from the body, okay? But I'll make it a little bit bigger, maybe something like 1.5 EM. Now, you might be noticing how we have to change the line heights a little bit, you know, because all this text is sort of being pushed up against each other. I'm going to copy the text from here to sort of show you. Okay, and as you can see, the line breaks are being sort of pushed up against each other, right? And how we're going to fix this is by using the line height property. But for the line height property as well, we don't want to use a pixel value. And we don't want to really use EMs either. So we're going to go down here, and we're going to pick this dash, okay? This dash signifies unitless, okay? So what this does is if I make the height 1, for example, sorry, if I make the height 1, it's just going to multiply that by the 5 em, giving it a height of 5 em. Now what this does is that regardless of, maybe I make the font size to be 6 em, right? That sort of line height, I don't have to change that to match the heading size anymore. Like it does it automatically, and that again saves a lot of time, but I'm gonna leave it at 5 em now. Okay, so for paragraph 1, just copy and paste that text like that, and change the height to be unitless. Make it at 1, a little bit more, maybe 1.5, 1.25. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to make our button here, so let's add that in. Okay. This is going to have a class of button primary. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do here is add some padding, and this padding is also going to be an EM. Now, what EM does when we're using it for padding is it takes into account the font size as well. So it's calculating it from the body as well as the font size, okay? So I'll make it 2 EM to the left and the right, and 1.5 EM, actually just maybe 1 EM, 1 EM. Okay, and just change the background color. Okay, like that, make that white. Okay, and I'm going to change that font size to be something like 1.2 EM. Okay, so a little bit bigger. And also going to add that border radius, that really subtle border radius. So something like, I'm not sure, like 1 EM, that becomes too much, 0.3 EM. Okay, so yeah, that looks good. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to do is add a little bit of margin for the paragraph 1. So maybe like 1 EM of margin to the top and 1 to the bottom, like that. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is create this sort of section to the right. So let's close out this background pink, and we'll drag in another div, and this div is going to be called background yellow. Just add that background color. Okay, so for this one, we're going to have a couple of more glasses. We're going to add that padding again. Okay. There we go. Now, we're going to add that image of ours. So grab that image. All of these images and sort of colors and everything will be linked in the description down below, so you guys can download those. But yes, okay. So this is going to have a class of grid image, okay? And the whole point of this class is just to take up the entire width of whatever this background yellow class is, okay? So that's it. Now, to get these sort of stickers to sit properly, okay, what we need to do is we need to set the image we need a container that sets the image, or no, we need a container that is set to position relative, okay? Now what position relative does is it allows the images set inside of it. So let's grab another image, one of our stickers here, and let's call this grid sticker, okay? Now if I set this to be position absolute, it is positioned to the, so here, right here in Webflow, it lets us know what it is relative to, and right now, it's relative to the body, okay? And we don't want it to be relative to the body, okay? Because what we wanted to do is we want it to be positioned based off of this image, right? We don't want it to be positioned based off of the body. So for example, if I set this top left option here, it's gonna go to the top left of the body, but I want it to go to the top left of the image, right? So how we're going to do that is we're going to drag in yet another div. This one is going to be really simple. It's just going to have a class of relative, and we're going to set the position to be relative, and then make sure that it is also set to flex, vertical, and center aligned, okay? Now if we drag the grid image and the grid sticker inside of these, you can see that now this grid sticker is positioned to the top left of the container that is holding the grid image. So it's sort of positioned to the top left of that container. And that's exactly what we want. Now we also want this padding to have a height of 100%, okay? And we also want this padding to be set to flex, vertical, and it can be aligned to the left but centered, justified to the center. There we go. Okay, now back to our stickers here, okay? This is going to be positioned to the top right. So again, we're just going to hit that top right to help us out. But then we're just going to move this grid sticker to a little bit off of that top right, okay? So right now it's 0% from the top and 0% from the right. That means that it's like all the way up in that corner. But I want to sort of push it a little bit over the edge. So how we're going to do this, we're going to do -2 EM, okay? Now this means is that I'm taking it -2 EM off of that sort of relative div, okay? So if I hold up the relative here, you can see that it's sort of spilling over that edge, okay? I'm going to do the same thing for the top, but actually no, I'm going to do the opposite for the top and push it down. So I'm going to do 2 EM to the top. Sorry, what happened there? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 EM to the top, and what that does is just, it pushes it down. So if I grab the grid sticker and circle over here, you can see that it pushes it down, okay? Now, the next step is making this next sticker. So let's go ahead and add another image in. Okay. Now, well, this sticker is also going to have a class of grid sticker, but we don't want it to be positioned in that same spot, right? So now might be a good time to use a combo class, but we've already sort of defined the styles in here, right? And this should not be the default for every single sticker. Every single sticker should just be positioned in an auto direction. So it's going to be all default grid stickers are going to be positioned absolutely, and that's it, okay? So how we're going to make sure that everything is like that is we're going to grab the first grid sticker and just give it a combo class of bottom left, and then do the same styles that we did previously. So 2 EM and -2 EM. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with this other grid sticker, but this one is going to have a class of, oh, bottom left. Oh, I typed that in wrong. Okay, so this is going to have a class of top right because it's positioned in the top right. So it makes it easier for us to grab that later on. But then we're going to grab the grid sticker and make sure this second one, and make sure that this is positioned to the bottom left, and then actually position it in the bottom left, okay? Now, exactly what we're going to do, exactly what we did to the top right, except we'll do it opposite. So what that means is that for the top right, we pushed the position top of 2M, right? So for the grid sticker bottom left, we're just going to push the bottom to EM instead of the top to EM, okay? And then we're going to do negative, as it was done for the top right, -2 EM on the right. We're going to do -2 EM on the left, okay? Like that. And actually what I want to do is set this EM to be REM, okay? Because what this does is EM is, again, taking into account every element that's around it, right? But REM is sort of like a fixed value, okay? And it sort of stops this moving around that we're having with our sort of grid stickers here. So I'm going to make sure that they're all set to REM. Make sure that this one is as well. Okay, this should be better now. Now the next part is creating this sort of name tag that you see down there. So let's add that in as well. This is going to be as a button, okay? This is going to be called name tag, okay? Okay, so let's give it some padding. Very little padding for the top and for the bottom, okay? And a little bit more padding to the left and to the right. And the reason that I'm giving it 3 EM of padding to the left and 1.5 EM to the right is because we want this sort of icon to show up right there. So how we're going to make that icon is we're going to choose it as a background color. So first, though, let me get all this other styling done. Okay, make sure that it says something like 1 EM, 1.2 EM, okay? Make it a big border radius, a little bit more. Okay, and then give it a background, or sorry, a border, right? And then let's add that final icon, okay? So just grab that right there. Now we're going to make sure that it has a sort of don't tile, which means that it basically won't repeat. And then we're going to position it in the center like that. And I'm also going to give it a little bit of stuff on the left, just so that it's not pushed up against the corner like that. Okay, I'm going to give it a width of 2 EM. Okay, like that. And I'm going to make sure that the text is set to semi-bold and just type that in. Like that. And I want to get rid of some of the padding on the top actually, as well as the bottom, like that. And to the right, so maybe 1.2 EM to the right. Okay, now I'm going to just position it. So position absolute, and then bring it right there. And I'm just going to give it a little bit for the bottom, maybe 1 EM. Okay, so now if we look at it, okay, so one thing that I'm noticing is that our stickers are staying the same size, okay? So we need to make sure that they have a different width. So this one can maybe have a width of 12 EM. This one can have a width of 10 EM. Or 7. Okay. Now let's go look. Okay, so it looks a little bit weird. Let's fix that. 14. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is, because this is laptop mode, we're going to add, make sure that the body is set to maybe something like 16 pixels. Could even make it 18, actually. Yeah. Oh, God, no. 18. Okay, now let's go look. Okay, that looks way better, but I'm going to change this grid sticker to have maybe 12 EM of size instead. Okay, there. The text looks way bigger and way better. Now the last thing that we need to do is add this sort of border, okay? So first thing that we're going to do is grab our grid halves, give it 2 pixels of border down at the bottom, and then we're going to make sure that it has a border to the right. Okay, now you might think that, okay, all we need to do is just give this border pink, this background pink, a class of border right? Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. And that's because what we also need to do is keep in mind that this border pink, this background pink, is not always going to be one that has a border, right? Like, for example, right here, we have a background pink, right? And this one doesn't have a border, so we have to go and change that for that, right? So instead what we can do is just make sure that this BG pink has a combo class of border right, and then all this is going to do is have 2 pixels of border to the right. Like that. So now if we look at it, okay, way better. So that's it for this section. Next up we have the navbar. So our next section is the navbar. Yeah, so we have a couple things going on here. We have some links to the side here, and we have some buttons, as well as this giant sort of logo. So let's go ahead and build this. I'm first just going to drag in the navbar component. I'm going to give it a class of navbar, and I'm going to make sure to set the flex to be vertical, like that. And the rest of these settings look good, but we'll change that. We'll change what's inside in just a second. But first, let's get rid of this background color. So just make it white, fully white instead. Okay. So inside of here, we're going to get rid of the container, like this. Just get rid of that container. And inside of our brand, we're going to have our nav logo. So that's this one right here. And we're just going to place that inside there. And for our brand, it's just going to have a width of 100%. So it should be taking up the whole sort of nav bar, right? And our image right here, which I'm going to give a class of nav logo. And I'm going to make sure that this thing also has a width of 100%. Okay, now we're going to go back to our brand and we're going to give some padding. So maybe like 2 EM of padding on all sides. Only 1.5 looks a little bit better. Yeah, 2 may be a bit too much, but that's, yeah, okay. So 1.5 EM of padding on all sides. And we're also going to give this a little bit of border at the bottom. Okay, and for our nav menu, we're going to go inside here, and I'm going to give this a class of nav menu. And I'm going to make another div, because we're going to have 2 separate divs. So we're going to have one called nav menu left that contains all these links here, and we have another one called nav menu right, and that's going to contain all of these links over here. So let's set this up. I'm going to call this nav menu left. And for now, I'm just going to put one link in here, and I'll just sort of delete the rest. Okay? So our nav menu is going to be set to flex and horizontal and center aligned like this. And okay, so let's go into our actual links. So it's gonna have no padding. So I'm just gonna set the padding to be 0 on all sides. And I'm instead gonna give it 1.5 EM of margin on all sides. Like that. And do the same to this right here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna duplicate this link a couple of times. And maybe for the top I'll make it 1 EM instead. Okay, perfect. Now I also want to give this nav menu some border at the bottom. So 2 pixels of border. And then finally we have to create these buttons here. So those, oh, I forgot to give these classes. So these should be called nav link. Okay, so now I'm going to make yet another div. And this one is going to have the class of nav menu right. Okay, and in here we'll have a button, and we're going to go back to the nav menu actually and make sure that it's set to justify space between, like that. And our align is set to stretch. That. Now for the button itself, I want to make sure that it has a height of 100% and it is set to flex and centered like that. This button is going to have a class of nav button, and it's going to have a background color of black. Oh, no, never mind. A background color of white and a text color of black. And then we are also going to make sure that the size is set to 1 EM. Could be 1.2 EM. Nope, 1 looks fine. And I think I'm going to do the same for my nav links here. Make sure the size is set to 1.2 EM, like that. Okay, so this is going to have a border to the left of 2 pixels. Now I'm just going to duplicate this, this button at least, and go back to my nav menu. Make sure that this is set to flex as well, like that. So this is going to have the class of dark, and essentially what's going on here is it's just going to be flipped, so it's going to have a color of black and a text color of white. Excuse me. So for the nav button, when we hover, we want the background color to turn to pink, like that. And then we want the same thing to happen with the nav button dark. Here we want the background color to turn pink, but then we want the text color to turn to black. Okay, perfect. So that's it for the nav bar. Moving on. The next section, as you can see here, is the sort of looping text sort of marquee that we have here. So let's go ahead and start making this one. Okay, so for this, I'm going to close out all this other stuff that I have here. Just drag in a div block. Oh. Okay, so this is going to be called looping text. How this animation works is that essentially we have 2 separate divs that are making this all work, okay? So we have the looping text div, okay? And this looping text div is going to take up the width of the sort of screen, right, of the browser window, right? So that spans across this entire screen, right? But then we have our looping text content, okay? And the looping text content is sort of spilling out from the page content. And all it's doing is the looping text content is moving, right? And then the looping text div that is holding that looping text content is set to overflow hidden to sort of hide that other, like the part of the looping text content that's spilling out. It'll make more sense when we start building it. So let's get started with doing that, okay? So we have the looping text div right here, okay? Now with this, we're just gonna set it to be flex, right? Horizontal. And yep, that's good. Now I'm gonna give it a little bit of padding for the top and the bottom, like that. Okay. and just make sure that the background color is set to black. Okay, now instead of here, like I was saying, we have our looping text content. This is what contains, well, our content, right? So looping text content, okay? So this is also going to be set to flex, and it's just gonna hold all of our different pieces of text, okay? So I'm gonna grab this and add our heading element here. That's going to be these sort of pieces here, okay? So this is gonna be called looping text heading. This is going to be a pretty big heading, okay? So maybe something like 5EM, right? Make sure that the text color is set to white so that we can actually see it. And as well, that applies for the line height as well, like that. And I think I might make it a little bit smaller, actually. 4EM looks good. Okay, so like this. Okay, now what we're also going to do is give it a little bit of margin to the left and to the right. That seems like it's going to be too much. Let's do 0.5 EM. I think that might be better. Yep, okay. Okay, like that. Now I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. We're also going to have this sort of dot in between, so if I can copy that successfully, there we go. Like that. Even that seems a little bit too much. Let's see. Let's do something like 0.25 EM. Okay, there. Now I am just going to duplicate both of these a couple of times. Wait, where was that? Like that. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. Okay, so now that we have it a couple of times, actually, let's do that just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So now that we have this, you can see that our text, it's actually wrapping, right? So then it sort of creates this effect, which is definitely not what we want, okay? And the reason it's doing this is because it's trying to fit all of our text in this sort of viewport, but we don't want that to happen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the heading, make sure that this is set to no wrap, okay? Just like that. So now if we look at it, you can see that it's working properly, just like that, okay? Now, all we need to do is to get this actual interaction to work, because as you can see now, really nothing is happening, okay? So, let's go ahead and do that. I actually sort of want to decrease the padding there. Okay, better. Okay, so as I was saying, let's get that interaction to work. So I'm going to grab the looping text content, and we're going to set a thing in here. So while scrolling, oh no, never mind. Sorry, scroll into view. Okay, so how this works is that when the element is in the view port, what we're going to do is we're going to set up an animation. Okay, so looping text content. Okay, that's what we're going to call it. And essentially what's going to happen is that we're going to start by moving it 0%. Okay? And this is going to have a duration of 0 because we want that to be like instantaneous, right? Because what's going to happen is that eventually we're going to run out of content to scroll through, and how this animation works is that eventually it's going to like reach a point where it sort of stops and like really quickly restarts, okay? But as a viewer, we don't want them to see that restarting, right? So here's how we're going to set that up to make sure that it doesn't show, okay? So then we're going to move it, right? And this time we want it to take maybe about 10 seconds to move, okay? And essentially what we're doing here is we're just going to have to sort of calculate this using percentages. So let's start with 10%. And we want it to be able to move it so that we get to a place where it looks exactly like it did originally, okay? So as you can see, there's not too much difference between what the original is and what it is like right now, right? So maybe I'll make it something like negative 35%. That seems like too much. Let's see, negative 34. That also seems like a little bit too much. Let's do negative 33, okay? 0.5. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty similar. And then once it reaches that point, we want it to sort of instantly move back to the starting. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that it goes back to 0%, and we're going to hit duration of 0 seconds. So now if we play through this, what's going to happen is, well, we won't be able to see it because the animation will end. But let's hit save, and let's hit loop, and then let's hit preview right here. Okay, so it's scrolling, it's scrolling. And then eventually, okay, you sort of saw that like little bit of difference, right? But it's not as visible unless somebody's like looking very closely at that. You're not going to be able to notice a difference, okay? Now, let's maybe fix something else. Maybe I'll try -25. Oh god, not that much. -25%. That doesn't look too good. Let's see, -50. Okay, that looks literally the exact same. So let's save this and let's go check it out. Let's see. Okay, I mean, I don't notice a difference yet. Oh yeah, this looks perfect. I definitely don't notice a difference. So let's hit preview, and I'll hit preview again in here just to see. Because it should tell us when the animation is done, and I think then we'll be able to see a difference. Let's keep looking. Oh my god, that's perfect. I didn't notice a difference at all, so I think that's great. Oh, this should stop probably moving. Okay, there we go, perfect. Okay, so that's our looping text. Next up, we have this section here with the lottie animation. Our next section is going to be this one with the nice lottie animation and this text. So let's go ahead and build this. Okay, so first things first, we need to build a sort of section element that is going to be reused multiple times, okay? So for this section element, I just have a div block with the class of section, and I'm going to give it some padding on the top and on the bottom. I'm thinking maybe 5 EM of padding to the top and the same for the bottom. And this is basically just set to flex, and it's centered vertically. Okay, so inside of here, we're going to have a couple of things. We're going to first have this text, and that text is going to be wrapped in a container. Okay, now text container, also something that we're going to see a lot more often. So this is going to be called text container. And this is also set to a flex position of vertical and center line like that. Now it's going to also have a little bit of padding to the left and to the right like that. And okay, perfect. Now inside of here, we're going to have our heading. This is going to be a heading 3. Heading 3. Now, I do want to name this or choose the heading type to be heading 2, even though this is heading 3. But yeah, now I'm just going to copy this text in here and just paste it like that. Now I want this heading 3 to be centered, and it's going to have a size of, let's say, 2.5 EM, 2.25 EM, and a height. So make sure to pick unitless and make sure to pick, I think I'm going to do 1.2. Okay, perfect. Now let's get into the actual sort of heading that we have down here, okay? So for this, I am going to pick yet another div. And this div is going to be called loop outer, okay? And that is because that's how the structure of our sort of this loop lottie container is going to be, okay? So we have one loop on the outer that contains this sort of border, and then we have one loop on the inside that has, again, this border, but also these sort of arrows and these rows with the text, so this top row down here and this row down here, and then we have our actual lottie container. So I'm just going to start building, and I'll explain as I go, okay? So for the loop outer, this is also going to be set to flex and centered. So it's going to have just a little bit of margin at the top, only because we want to separate it from that text, right? Now, what else do I want to do? I want to give it a width of 100%. but also want to make sure that it has a max width. So let's say the max width is 75 rem, just because we don't want it to be too big and for it to look weird. So that. Now I'm going to pick a background color for it, that is our yellow, and it's going to have a radius of 30 rem, okay, a border radius, and 3 pixels of border, okay? So that's perfect. Now let's go in and make our loop inner. Now just so that we're sort of able to see our loop outer, I'm going to give the loop inner a minimum height of 16 rem, okay? So now we can see. Now, to create the effect that there's 2 different sort of loops, what we need to do is we need to give the loop outer a little bit of padding. So I say maybe 2 EM of padding all around, okay? Now this way, when we grab our loop inner, so let me change the class of this one, call it loop inner. If I make this have a width of 100%, and I give this one a border as well, the same border, and like that, and as you can see, it creates sort of like a loop inside of a loop. Now the loop inner is again also set to be flex and vertical and center aligned, just like that. Now, our loop row is the row right here that you can see that contains both of these pieces of text and has all these arrows and so on. So here's how we're going to build out the loop row. So first thing I'm going to do is just place a div block inside of here, and this is going to be called loop row. So this loop row is going to be maybe 80% of the whole loop, okay? And because again it's like a horizontal row that contains text, we're going to use flex, and I'm just going to align it to the center and justify it with space between, okay? Or yeah, space between looks good, just like that, okay? Now inside of this loop row, we're going to have our loop row items. Now our loop row items contain the paragraph element that is going to be our text. So basically inside of this loop row item, I am going to make sure to put in a paragraph 1 that is going to serve as our text. So let me just put that in, and let's call it paragraph 1, like that, and I'll just paste some of this text in. If I'm able to copy it, it's okay, I can just type the rest in, that's fine. Okay, so that's our text. Now, as you can see right here, the paragraph 1 has some margin. So let's go ahead and give it a combo class of no margin, and just give that margin 0. Okay, now let's add this sort of arrow that you see out here that creates that sort of like effect that the arrow is pointing towards the text, okay? So let's go to our backgrounds, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick, you can find it, so that's this arrow right here, and I'm just going to center it like this to the left, right? And I'm going to make sure that's the size is, let's say, 0.75 rem, okay? And it says no repeat, and that's exactly how we need it to be. Okay, perfect. Now, to get this effect of like sort of having this space, right, between the arrow itself, we just need to add some padding. So maybe I'll give it 2 EM of padding on both sides, like that, okay? So now let's just duplicate this item, okay? And let's place it up on this loop inner so that we can get the effect that it's sort of intersecting at this line, okay? So for that, we're going to use position absolute. So I'm going to make sure to hit position absolute. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to position it -1 EM from the top. Okay? And now it's all the way at the top of the entire sort of page, but we don't want it to be like that, so we're going to grab the loop inner and make sure that this is set to position relative. Now, as you can see, now the loop row is perfectly positioned in the middle of the loop inner, okay? Or the border of it. Now, as you can see, it's on top of the line, but it's still not covering it, right? So for that, we just need to give it an actual background color of yellow, and there we go, okay? Now, if we duplicate this loop row, I'm going to grab the second one, and I'm going to give the second one a class of bottom, and I'm just going to make sure that it's positioned auto at the top, but -1 at the bottom, like that. Okay? Now, for the text at the bottom, you can see that the arrows are coming in from the right instead of the left as they are, but as you can see, the arrows are pointing to the left direction in the bottom row. So how do we do that? Okay? So for these ones, I'm going to grab this loop row item, and I'm going to give it a special combo class called left. Here, I'm just going to get rid of I'm just going to grab the background image, and I'm going to choose a different image, like this one right here, okay? And instead of positioning it to the left, I'm going to position it to the right, like that. Now, if I just give the second loop row item that same combo class, you can see that the same thing happens like that. Now, the only thing left here is to add our lottie animation, so I'm just going to close out both of these, and I'm going to bring in my loop lottie container, okay? So this is just going to have a width of, let's say, 50%, okay? And inside of here, I am just going to grab the lottie file, and I'm just going to place it inside of here, okay? Let's maybe make it something smaller, like 25%. And here, I'm just going to position it absolutely. And let's give it maybe 2 EM up at the bottom, just to bump it up a little bit. So that's it for this section. Moving on to the next one. The next couple of sections all have or are based around the same sort of grid concept that we have going on here. So for example, this section is something that we've built before, which is the hero. It's pretty similar to that one, and that's pretty similar to this one, and so on. And I feel like what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed through the bits that we've already sort of created, right? So it'll still be on the screen, but I'm going to speed through the bits that don't need me explaining it too much because we've already done it, but I will stop and pause anytime something new comes up, okay? So yeah, that's how this section is going to be, so yep. But for this particular section, I will sort of walk through it, so let's get started with that one. And close out this section in here, and drop in another div. So we have, this one's gonna be called grid halves, okay? And now we're gonna create another background. This is gonna be called BG black, okay? Because that's the color of this one right here. So just add that in. And then it's also going to have some padding. So give it that padding class. Again, now as you can see here, things are way easier now because we're doing a lot of reusing. We don't really have to think too much about sort of recreating these, but I'm gonna go back to my images, drag in this one right here. Okay. Okay, now this again is going to have that class of grid image that we've already made before. Okay, so now the only new thing right here is this sort of comic bubble here. So let's add that in, okay? So this comic bubble is going to be called exactly what I said. So it's going to be called comic bubble. And it's going to have a little bit of padding. So 1.5 EM at the top. Same at the bottom, and 2 EM for both the left and the right. Okay, so this is going to have a background color of white, and it's also going to have some text inside instead of selling a book, like that. Now we're going to give it a border, and okay, 2 pixels border and some border radius. And after that, all we really need to do is just change that font size, 1.25 EM, and make sure that it is set to unitless, like that. And I also want it to be semi-bold, like that. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is just position it absolutely, and to the top right. Oh, okay, so right now what just happened is it positioned to the top left of the body. So if we go up to the body, you can see that our comic bubble is all the way up there, but that's not where we want it to be. So I just forgot to add that relative class, so let's add that in. So add a div, call it relative, and then I'm just going to place both of these inside of here like that. There we go. That looks exactly how it's supposed to. Now I'm going to make it spill over just a little bit, so maybe -2 rem and 2 around from the bottom like that. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to duplicate this background black because all we really need to change here is the background black, make that just background yellow, which we already have, and then just replace the image. So again, this makes it so much easier. We don't have to define any new classes and things are great. Let's just put that in there. Okay, perfect. Now moving on to this next section, this is also going to be pretty simple. So I'm just going to grab, actually what I'm going to do is just duplicate this section right here, but get rid of the loop. Okay, that gives us the basic starting point to this section. But now all I'm going to do is just rid the heading 3 inside, and instead drag an actual heading in here, and this is going to be called heading 1. Okay, and if I just copy it like that, now the next thing that we need is a paragraph element. So just paste that paragraph in as well. Make sure that has that class of paragraph 1, and this particular paragraph is going to be centered. So to get that effect, I'm going to give it that combo class because again, a lot of our other paragraphs are not centered, like this one right here, so we don't want to mess with those styles. So I'm just going to make it a combo class and center it in here. Then finally we need this sort of link over here, so let's add that in as well. So this is just going to be called link, and it's going to have some text inside of it, a paragraph 2. Paragraph 2, I think, is what I want to name that. So this is going to have a font size of 1.2 EM, okay? Make sure that that height is set to 1, okay? Now I'm also going to center this by default and go back to the link here. Make sure that there's no text decoration and the color is black. Okay. I'm also just going to grab this link here and bold it. So make sure that it's set to semi-bold, I think is good. And I think that just says explore features. Okay, that's it. Now, for this next sort of grid here, it's pretty similar except for this list. So I'm going to quickly just go through here. Just going to add yet another div. Again, grid halves. Now after this one, it's going to be pretty simple because we just have to sort of duplicate these classes a couple of times to get what we need, but I'll explain that as well. Okay, so again, this is going to be our new class, and this is just going to be called background teal. Now let's set that background. Here is the color. I'll just add it as a swatch so we can reuse it later. There we go. Now for this particular background teal, we don't even have any padding to surround this image. So let's just drop the image in just like that. So quickly call this grid image. Okay, now we're going to create this next section. Now this next section is going to be called background white. Okay, so this is pretty simple too. Just need to change that to be white. And okay, so here we're going to create a heading. Okay, and this heading is going to be reusable full time. So, oh wait, this needs some padding. I forgot about that class. Let's add that in now. Padding. Oh god. Okay, there we go. Pad. There. So this padding class is going to contain a heading 2. And this heading 2 we're going to reuse multiple times. So this is going to be our heading 2. And our heading 2 is going to have a size of 3 EM. And make sure that that line height is again set to unitless and so anything. I can't spell. There we go. Now again, reusable classes, so we can use our paragraph 1 again. So paragraph 1. And just paste that text in. Now the only new thing really in this section is going to be our list. So let's add that list as well. So for this, just going to make an actual list and here call it list. Make sure to give it no bullets like that. And also make sure that there's no padding because we don't really want that. Okay. Now this list is going to be set to grid actually. And it's going to be 1 column of grid and 0 gap and auto number of rows, okay? So now I'm just going to delete both these list items just until we have our actual list items ready. So here we go. So in here we have our list item. Now this list item is going to do nothing but just carry this sort of background image that is our arrow over here. So let's add that in. So that's going to be our arrow right, like that, no repeat, and make sure that's centered as well, like that. Now inside of this list item, we're going to have our list item text. So for that, this is just going to be called paragraph 2. Even that might be too big actually. Let me just give it a new class known as list item text. And I'm just going to leave it at 0.8 em. 1 em. Okay, 1 em looks good. Okay, now for this list item text, I want to give it some margin so that it doesn't sort of mess with this background image that we have here, our arrow. But before that, I need to make sure this arrow has a width so that this arrow is not messing with that. So let's add a width of 1.5 em. Okay. Now for our list item text, we just need to give it a margin of, let's say, 3 em. That's too much. Let's do 2. And then let's add in our actual text. Like that. And I guess all we need to do is grab our list item text and make sure that there's no margin at the bottom. Okay, like that. Now I'm just going to duplicate the list item a couple of times. And let's go back to our list here. And in our grid settings, let's unlock this and make sure that in our rows, we have a spacing of 1 em. 0.75 em. Like that. Okay, so that's it for this section. Now let's move on to this one. So, almost forgot. So for our section, let's go back and make sure that it has some border at the bottom. There we go. Okay. Now, what are we missing here? Oh, okay. So this sort of background teal right here needs to have a border right. So let's give it that border right class of 2 pixels. Now, as I was saying, next up we have this section. This is also going to be a grid, so I might as well duplicate this. Okay, never mind. Let's try one more time. Okay, there. Okay, so for this next section, what we're going to do is, okay, so first things first, get rid of that border right class because this one doesn't need a border. We're going to add a class of background pink, okay? And there's not going to be an image here. And, okay, so this is also going to have a class of background pink, like that. And what we need here is we need some padding. That's right. We don't need any of this stuff. Let's add our relative class. Relative class. And inside this relative class, let's keep our image. Where did that image go? There we go, our creator. Okay, so this is going to have a class of grid image. And now what we need to do is add in our stickers. So just grab that other image if I can find. Okay, so that's that one right there. So now I know what I'm looking for. Okay, so grid sticker. Now this one is also positioned to the bottom left, so we can already use that class. Perfect. Now let's add in our name tag, which we again also have. So name tag. There we go. Now we just needed to say max. There we go. Okay, so now we need to create this left section here that just contains some text. Again, all stuff that we've done before. So grab that background and just add a padding class. Now we just need to add in a heading. Okay, this is going to be heading 3, I believe. And so let's just select that there. And I'll just paste in this text. Okay, that is way bigger than I imagined it to be. I think I'm gonna redo this heading, make sure that's just 2EM. And I don't want this specific heading to be centered, so I'll just do it like this. And then we're gonna add our final paragraph 1. So this is going to be called paragraph 1. And just paste in this text. Okay. See how we just got this done very, very quickly? Well, that's because of our how we reuse classes throughout. Now, the next couple of sections, so for example, this section right here is extremely similar to this section right here, except it doesn't have that list, and it's just the colors are a bit different. And this section right here is really similar to this one, and so on. So I'm going to speed through these next couple of sections, but yeah, it's nothing too complicated, so let's just go through that, okay? Okay, so I just wanted to pop in now and sort of explain. I've got done all these sections, but in this for this specific creator section, the stickers are sort of switched around. So the sticker that was supposed to be in the top right is now in the top left, and then the bottom left sticker that we've been so used to creating is now on the bottom right. So let's add those classes as well. So I'm just going to replace these images with the ones that they are for this specific creator, if I can find those. Okay, so that one right there, and that one says how to, so let's go find that. There we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab this grid sticker and get rid of that top right class, instead call this top left. Okay, so this one, to be positioned at the top left, is going to have the exact same class as at the top right, but it's gonna be positioned here. So it's gonna have that 2 rem at the top and -2 rem at the left, like that. Now I'm also going to give it that width again. It's gonna be a little bit bigger, maybe 14 EM. That's way too much. 12, 7 it is. Now for our grid sticker bottom left, we're also going to do the same thing. Remove that class, make one for bottom right, and just position it there. 2 rem at the bottom and -2 rem at the left. Now for our name tag, we need to also position this. So this is going to be, so I have my class of bottom left, just position it here and give it 1 EM of space, like that. Actually, want to give this grid sticker a width as well, maybe 5 EM. That's way too tiny. 10 looks about right. Okay. So that's it for this particular creator section. Let's see. Yeah, so next up we have this section right here. This one we are going to create next. So yeah, that's what's next. So this next section is this one right here with all these coins that you see sort of floating around. So yeah, let's go ahead and make this one. So for this, I'm going to reuse that section class from before. So again, oh, no, that's not where I want that div block to go, but I'm just going to place that in here, and I'm going to give this a class of section. So in here, first thing that we're going to do is add our text container that we also have used previously. So call it text container. And this text container this time is going to have a heading. And this heading is going to have its own class called income heading, because it's going to be really, really big and we don't really have any other headings that need to be this big. So I'm going to give this a size of 9 EM and make sure that the height is unitless like always. like that. I'm just going to copy that text. Okay, now after this, I'm just going to add my paragraph element. This is going to be a paragraph 1. And again, just paste that text in. And I want to make sure that this one is centered. So for that, what I'm going to do is, again, use my existing combo class of centered, like that. And then I'm going to paste or place this new image in here that we have at the bottom. So for that, I'm going to go in through here. And okay, that's our image. I'm going to give this a class of income BG for income background. And this is basically just going to have a width of 100%. Okay, so, oh, we need to take this out of the text container. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so another thing that we don't want is our section to have a sort of padding at the bottom. So let's go ahead and call this no padding bottom and no combo class, and this is just going to have a padding of 0 at the bottom. Okay, now let's go ahead and start placing our coins into here. So for this, I am just really going to drag a couple of images in. So if I can find the first coin, I'm just going to place that in here. So this is going to be called income coin. Now all of them are going to be set to position absolute. Make sure that the section is set to position relative. Okay, so perfect. So this income coin in particular, this first one, so I'm going to make sure to give that a combo class. And so this is going to be -5em. So it's going to be posted really off to the side, off of the view. It's sort of being cut off. And it's also going to be only 2em from the top. Like that. Now I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times and just change up the position settings and replace the images. So for the second one, I'm going to pick my second image, which is this one right here. And for the third one, I'll pick my third image. I'll go ahead and replace all of these with their new combo classes and their new positions, but I'm just replacing all the images for now. Okay, so 4 is good enough. Okay, so the first one is to be left alone. Now let's grab the second one. I'm just going to remove this class. I'm going to pick 2. Instead, and this one is just going to be positioned -3em off the top. This one, I wanted to have a width of, let's say, 12em, so it's pretty big, and that's, I think, about it. I also want to give it a little bit of spacing to the left, and that's maybe 18, well, not pixels, em, like that. Now for the third coin, I'm just going to get rid of that class again. Make sure this has the class of 3. And this one is going to have a width of 9em. And it's just going to be placed, let's say, 10em from the right. Let's make that 15 actually. And it's going to be positioned 5em from the top. Okay, so now let's grab our fourth coin. And again, get rid of that combo class, make sure it says 4. And this one is going to be positioned -5em from the right. And this is going to have a width of, let's say, 8em. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, let's say 14. So this is pretty ginormous. Actually, I'll leave it at 10. And it's also going to be 20em from the top. Okay, now I think we have one more coin left. So just going to copy and paste one of these. Okay, bring it down. And this is going to just rid of that class. Call this 5. And I'm going to replace it with the image. Okay, so this is going to have a width of 10em as well. And this is going to be positioned 25em from the top and 10em from the left. Okay. Let's make sure all of them have widths. Okay, so the first one does not, so let's go ahead and give that a width of, let's say, 7em. I'll keep that at 9, okay? I think I've given them all widths now. Okay, perfect. That's it for the structure of the section. Now let's go ahead and build out the animation that comes next. So for that, I'm just going to go into my interactions panel and find a while scrolling in view. Now for this, I'm going to make a new interaction called income while scrolling in view. And for this, I'm just going to grab any of the income coins and I'm going to make sure that they start moving. Okay, so here where it says class, make sure that it's selecting all the income coins, so not any specific combo class. Just make sure it's selecting an income coin itself. Okay, and let's move the keyframe to be 25%. Let's vote for it to end at 75. Now we want it to start at, let's say, -6 EM, and we want it to go back down to +6 EM. Okay, so now if we preview this, as you can see that as we scroll down, it goes down. As we scroll up, it goes up. Now this is the exact opposite of what we want to be happening, so let's go ahead and fix that. It should be -6 EM, so that means when we scroll down, we want it to scroll up. When we scroll up, we want it to scroll down. So we want the opposite to be happening. Now if we check, as you see, as we scroll down, the coins move up. Okay, so that's it for this section. Let's go on to the next one. These next couple of sections, like this one, and this one, are very similar to the ones that we've made before, so I'm just going to fast forward through them just so that you guys don't have to see me sort of re-explain the things that I already have. But yeah, that's what it's going to be. The next section is this one with the footer, right? But I sort of wanted to include this as well. This isn't the footer itself, but it acts as like a sort of section in between, and there's not really that much content that we really need to create in here, so I thought I might just put it in with the footer. But yeah, so let's just get started in making this whole section. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to do is, if I could just close out all this other stuff. Okay, so I am going to bring in this section that we already have up here, and I'm actually just going to duplicate it, and I'll bring it back down here, and I'm going to add the BG Pink class to this section, and that just turns it exactly how we need it to. Now I'm going to delete the paragraph and the link because we don't need that. I'm going to copy and paste this text in as well so that it's there like that. Okay. Now, the next thing that we really need to do is just add that button. So let's go ahead and just bring in a button and add that class. I think it was called button primary. Okay, there we go. Now the text just says start selling. And I think that's it. I just want to give this a little bit of margin. So I'm going to add a combo class called margin and just maybe give it a margin of 1 rem. That's not good enough. 3. Okay, 2. Let's do 2 rem. Okay, so that's it for this section. Now let's move on to the actual footer. So I'm just going to close this out and grab another section, actually. So let's just drag the div in and then I'll explain it. So this is going to be section div. It's going to have a background color of black, just like that. Okay, so inside of this section we're going to have our actual footer. So let me grab another div for that and just place it, call it footer. Okay, so this footer div is going to be pretty easy to create. We just have a grid layout. So I'm going to grab the footer, make sure that it has a grid layout. Now it's going to have two columns, so it's going to be 1 FR and 0.65 FR, just like that. And the rows can just be auto. It's actually going to have 3 rows, I believe. So let's, oh, that didn't work. There you go. Okay. So like that, and I just wanted to give it that width of 100%. So it's like that. Perfect. And just a little bit of margin on the sides. Okay. Let's get rid of that width. And I think what we need to do here, wait. Let's give it some padding instead. Yeah. Okay. So a width of 100% and 4 EM of padding on the left and the right. Okay. Now, the first thing to do is add our logo like that. So I'm going to drag, that's actually an image, so let's drag that in. Where is it? Right there. Okay, so this is going to have a class of footer logo. Okay. Now, this is going to be a pretty small logo, so I want to give it a width of something like, let's say, 14 EM. That looks pretty good. Let's try 12. Okay, that looks way better. Now, in this sort of section right here, you can see there's no text. We don't want to put anything in there. So to get that sort of effect, what I'm going to do is add, so for this heading, right, this is going to be a heading 2, okay, and it's going to have that, and make sure that the color is white. Actually, to do that, I can just go back to my footer and set the color to be white in here. Perfect. Now, as you can see, our heading is appearing here, right, in this section, but we want it to be down here. We want this sort of section to be empty. To do that, we have to go to our position, grid child position, and we're gonna hit, we want it to go in the first column, but in the second row. Oh, wait, that's not it. We have to go to manual, so make sure to click manual in here, and then we want it to start on column 1, right, and we want it to start on the second row, so let's make sure to specify that as well. So it's on the, oh wait, never mind. Okay, it's on the first column. Let's see. I'm gonna just get this text in and see. I mean, it's laying exactly where I want it to, but the numbers are mixed up and I don't really know why. Okay, there. I think that was just a glitch. But yes, so now it's in the first column, but in the second row. That's exactly what we wanted, right? Now, the next thing to do is build these sort of links here. So for that, I'm going to grab yet another div. Okay, I'm going to call this footer links wrapper. Okay, so this is going to be in the second row. I'm sorry, in the second column and in the second row. Like that. Okay, so for this, I'm going to have 2 separate sort of divs inside of here. So each of them are going to contain a separate set of links. So this will be one set of links and this will be another. So this is going to be called footer links, okay? Now inside of the footer links, we're going to have our actual links. So let me just grab a text link works. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so this is just going to have a class of link like that. Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is just fine. And I actually want to make sure that this has no underline, like that. Okay, so now I'm going to type in, it says help. Okay, and I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times inside of our links here. Now make sure that our footer links are set to flex and vertical. It can be aligned to the left like that. Okay, and justified, I think space. No, this is fine. Yeah, justify, this is fine. I'm gonna give this another sort of combo class, and that's going to be called footer link. And all I really want to do here is just make sure that it has some margin at the bottom. So maybe like 2 EM of margin at the bottom, 1 EM of margin at the bottom, and just make sure that all of them have this class. Okay, like that. Now if I just duplicate this a couple of times, okay, So even that might be too much. Let's do 0.5 like that. Now I'm going to duplicate the footer links, and then I'm going to go back to my footer links wrapper and make sure that this is set to flex as well, and horizontal, and space between. Okay, now we're going to grab the footer links and make sure that both of these are set to a width of 50% so they are centered like that. Okay, perfect. I think that's it. What else do I want to do? Okay, now this looks fine. I'm going to just increase the size a little bit, maybe make it 1.2 EM, like that. Okay, perfect. Now, as you can see, everything is sort of like squished up against each other, and I want to add some gap, like some sort of spacing between all of my grid elements here. So for that, I'm going to set a gap. So I'm going to go into my grid here. Now the gap between the columns, let's make that something like 15 EM. That looks about right. Let's say maybe 12 EM. Okay. And then I want the gap between the rows to be 15 EM. That is way too much. Let's see, 10, 7, 5. Okay, I think that looks good. 5 looks good. So now that we're done with the links, the next part would obviously be to create this sort of small section here with our copyright and this icon. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to close out the links wrapper, and I'm actually going to bring in another div, and I'm going to give it a class of copyright. So I'm going to edit the position so that it is here, like we already want it to be. We want it to be in the first column and in the third row. So let's just do that. Okay, so this is going to be pretty simple. Let's just drag in an icon. Okay, so go from our images right here. Okay, so I'm just going to use this one. Okay, I'm going to call it footer icon. Okay, so this is going to maybe have a width of 2 EM, I want to say. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to put a paragraph next to it, like that. I'll give it a class of paragraph 2. And make sure that copyright is set to flex, like that. Okay, so this is just going to, actually I'm just going to copy it straight from here. Okay, like that. And what I'm going to do now is make sure that, oh, there's no margin at the bottom of our paragraph 2. Okay, and for this specific one, I'm going to give it a class of footer, and then, okay, footer copyright, call it that, and I'll just give it maybe 1 EM of margin to the left, like that. Now the final section to create is the sort of icons that appear at the bottom, so let's go ahead and do that. So for this, I'm just going to call this footer social icons. So, or we can just honestly just call it footer social. Okay. And this footer social, let's go to manual again. This is going to be in the second column and in the third row, like that. Okay, so for this one, we should probably just drag in all of our images first, or at least one of them. Okay, so this is going to be called footer social, social icon. And this is going to be pretty simple too, just have a width of 2 EM, like that. And I'm just going to duplicate this, or let's go back to our footer social. Make sure to set this to be flex, horizontal, and space between, because I think we're going to need 5 icons, like that. So now I'll just go in and replace all of these with the actual logos. Okay, so we have 2 more left. I think it's, let's see, Instagram and then Pinterest and Facebook. So let's go ahead and just add that in if we can. Okay, Facebook, and if I can even grab Pinterest. I'm just going to bring in Pinterest by here. Okay, so drag it in here like that. Okay, so this is, again, let's just give it that class, so footer social icon. Okay, now everything looks good, really, except for the Facebook logo. So let's go ahead, I'm just gonna give this a combo class, and I'm gonna set the width to be auto, and the height to be 2em instead. And maybe I can make the size of the icons a little bit less, maybe 1.5em instead. And I'll just change that for the Facebook one as well. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And okay, that's it for most of our website. Now the next couple of sections are just going to be about adding that parallax animation, like we see up here, right? That parallax animation with the sticker, and just making the website responsive. So yeah. Next up is this parallax animation that we see multiple times throughout our page. So let's go ahead and build that. Now this is pretty simple, I feel. So let's just go to our grid halves, and it's sort of similar to what we did in the income section previously. As you can see, where'd that go? Right here. We added the parallax animation to this section. So it's pretty similar to that, but yeah, this is a little bit different. So let's go ahead and grab the grid halves, and I'm gonna go to the element trigger and make sure to hit while scrolling in view. Okay, so this is gonna be called grid halves scrolling in view. Okay, so three things we want to happen actually. We want to happen, okay? The grid stickers need to be moving up while we are scrolling down, and so does the name tag, okay? But the name tag is like a really subtle sort of moving, right? The grid stickers move a little bit more than the name tag. So let's go ahead and create that. First things first, let's grab the grid sticker, and let's just move it. Now, let's start somewhere around 25%, and let's end somewhere around 75%. Now at 25%, I want it to be down at, let's say, -4em, okay? And then at 75%, I want it to go back up to -4em, okay? So now if we sort of play through here, so as you scroll down, it goes down, right? But as we scroll up, it goes up. Now we want the opposite happening, right? So let's just switch things around. So 25%, it will go down 4em, and at 75%, it'll go up 4em. So now if we check it out, we can see that it's going up. There we go, just like that. We can probably do a smoother scroll when we get out of this preview mode, but yeah. Now, to make all of the stickers move, what we can do is we can make sure to select grid sticker, but all of them without any combo classes. So now if we try this, then all of our grid stickers are going to move. Just like that. So there we go. Okay, now the last thing that we want to move is the name tag, right? So I am going to stick the name tag right where we started our grid sticker, and I'm going to move it maybe, let's say, 1.5em, okay? And then we will do the same thing for it here, except it would be -1.5em. Okay, this is going to be really subtle. Now, as you can see, this parallax animation is working. So if I scroll down a little bit less with our tag right here, it's working, right? But we just have to apply the same parallax effect to all of the grid halves, right? That have the sort of stickers. So for example, for this one, it doesn't have a sticker, right? This grid halves, but these ones do. So let's just select this grid halves, and we're just going to add a trigger for while scrolling in view, and we're just going to select this one, okay? Now I'm going to go through here and do it for this one as well, and that's it, okay? So we added the parallax animation to all of these pages, but now let's go ahead and see what's going on. So I'm going to hit preview mode, and there we go. It's moving. I'm going to go a little bit slower with the scroll bar here. There we go. Now this effect sort of continues all throughout the page. As you can see, this one is moving as well. And this one, just like that. Okay, yeah. This one, okay, so they're all moving, and so are our coins over here. And this one. Okay, perfect. So that's really it for the parallax animation. Next up, we're gonna make this responsive. Next up, it's time to make this website responsive. So the first step in doing that is first going into our finished website demo right here and making sure that this looks good and responsive as well. So I'm gonna hit inspect and I'm going to go to tablet mode. And there we go. So first of all, we see a couple of changes. We'll be back to the navbar in a little bit, but first let's sort of explore all the other changes that are going on. So first of all, you can see that our grid has gone from being positioned from left to right to being top and bottom, okay? Our sort of gum head lottie has given up its border radius, at least for the loop outer, and has taken up this entire sort of screen space. And that's really about it. I see that everything is a lot more centered now. Okay, so the first thing that we noticed, as you can see here, is that we need to change the grid halves. So let's go to the grid halves and let's make sure to go to our grid settings, and I'm just going to delete one of the columns. Now, as you can see, there's only one column now. So now next up, the first thing to fix is our loop outer. So let's get rid of the border radius first. So I'll make that 0 rem. And I'm also going to get rid of the borders on the left and on the right, but not on the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to go into my loop inner and make sure that the border radius here is now only around 1.5 or 2 rem. I'm going to grab the loop lottie container and make sure this takes up a little bit more space, maybe something like 30% instead. Actually 40 would look pretty good too. I also want to make sure this has a really high z-index just so that it covers all of our text like that. Okay, now I'm looking through and I think that's it for the responsive mode that isn't the nav bar. Oh, never mind, I almost forgot. Okay, so for our border right classes, we need to make sure that the border is switching from the right. So we need to write the right border to go down to 0, and we need that border to sort of transfer down to the bottom. Okay, so you see that border down there. So now let's go ahead and fix that in all of our other sort of spots. Okay, so right here, this needs a border. So let's go ahead and make sure that the border to the right is set to 0 and the border to the bottom is set to 2 pixels. I think this is the last spot in which we have to do that. So 0 and then 2 pixels. For the nav bar, first thing that we're going to do is make sure that this logo and this nav menu, they sort of sit next to each other, okay? And this sort of icon, okay? So what we're gonna do for that is set our nav bar to be horizontal. We're going to align it to the center, and we're gonna hit space between. Now we don't notice too much of a difference because our brand, our nav logo right here, is still taking up a width of 100%. We don't want that, so maybe I'll give it a width of 15 EM. So let's go ahead and see 15 EM. Okay, that looks good. I'm just going to reduce some of that padding. So make that like 0 padding. And instead we're just gonna add like that. Now we also want to get rid of that border at the bottom, so make that 0, like that. Okay, now for our icon. We're not going to use the default icon that Webflow has given us. We're actually going to make our own sort of lines with divs. And why we need to do that actually is because first of all, we only need 2 lines. And second of all, we want to create this really cool cross interaction. So if I click on this, you can see that there's like a cross. So that's how, to make that, we need our own sort of divs instead of this icon, okay? So I'm just going to get rid of that. And in this My Menu button, what I'm going to do is, okay, well first I want to give this nav bar a border at the bottom, 2 pixels black. And then I am going to grab a div And I'm just going to place this directly in my menu button. Okay, so in my menu button goes this div, and I'm going to call this menu line. Now menu line is going to have a width of 2 rem and a height of 2 pixels. Okay, so now I'm going to give it a background color, and then I'm just going to duplicate it. I'm going to go back to my menu button and style it so that it's vertical like this and center aligned. So now if you look at it, you can see that it's there, right? And our navbar is showing up, but not how we want it to, but we'll fix that as well. Now, what we want to do is we want to give some margin, right? Because both of these divs look like they're right on top of each other, not like they're 2 separate lines, right? So for that, what we need to do is, well, first let's get rid of this padding. Okay, then let's give it some margin. So maybe it's going to have 1 EM of margin at the bottom. Okay, 1 EM of margin, which I guess does not work. Let's try maybe 1 VW of margin. Okay, that looks way better, and it actually works. So let's do that instead. And I'm going to select our second menu right here and make sure to give it a class of bottom and just sort of get rid of that margin. Okay, perfect. Now what I want to do next is let's just click on the menu button, and let's go to our settings here and just hit show. So this is what our navbar will look like when we create, when we sort of click on it, right? And this is not how we want it to look, but this is just how it looks like, okay? So first things first, we're gonna grab our nav menu and make sure that it does not have any background color, or really they should have a background color full black. And then we're gonna grab our menu button itself, and we're gonna make sure that this is set to transparent, okay? Now, for our nav links, we want to make them white in this case. So all of them are going to be white. And our nav buttons, grab our nav menu right and make sure that this is set to vertical and it's aligned to the left like that. Okay, so for this, for our nav button, well, what we're going to do is we're just first of all going to get rid of all of our padding that we have here. And instead, we're going to give it some margin like we did with the nav links. So the nav links have a margin of 1.5 EM and a little bit more. So let's do that for this one. We're going to give it 1.5 EM of margin to the left. And it doesn't really matter what we do to the right, but we can do it anyways. And it's going to be 1 EM of margin to the top and 1 EM to the bottom. Okay? So let's see, how much does this have? That has the same amount, but for some reason that looks a little bit different. Let's go ahead and change the background color. So the background color for this is going to be black as well, and we just need to change the color to be white. Okay, now for our nav button dark, let's just remove that class and then we should be good to go. Okay, and let's see, what can we do here? When we hover on these, we also want none of that background color, so let's just keep it at black, or actually we can just hit reverse and okay, so when we hover, we want the background color to stay transparent, and pretty much nothing should change, basically. So that looks good. I'm gonna give the a little bit more margin. Let's see. I'm going to give it a little bit more margin, and then I also, that's it. Perfect. Now I'm going to grab the nav menu, and I think that's it. Let me just click on it. Yep, that looks about right. Now, what I want to do is just make sure that this has a background, or sorry, a border at the top of 2 pixels white, okay? Now, if we go ahead and hide this menu and we go into a preview mode and we click on this nav button, you can see that the menu comes out, okay? But we want to change a couple of things, okay? So first of all, we want this top part of the navbar to also change with the bottom part, right? Like we want it to, fade and turn into this black color, and then we want the logo to turn to white, and we want this nice animation with our menu button, right? We don't just want this. So how we're going to create all that is not by using this show settings, because nothing will really happen if we try to change settings for the entire navbar or for different parts of the navbar by just using show. So what we need to do is we need to set up an interaction on the menu button. So we're going to go to our menu button and we're going to set up a new click interaction, okay? So I'm going to call this interaction menu button open, okay? So when I first click it, I want the menu button to open, okay? So I want the menu to come out, I want this to change to that cross, I want the background color to change, and so on. So first, let's get this menu to sort of animate. So I'm going to grab the menu line and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees, okay? And then I am going to grab my second menu line. Oh, okay, make sure this is selecting only the selected element. Okay, make sure it says selected element. And we're also going to hit selected element on this one. And I want this to rotate negative 45 degrees. Okay, so they're both rotating, but they don't really look like a cross, right? It looks a little bit weird. So to fix that, I'm going to grab our first menu line, and I'm just going to move it down 5 pixels, okay? And then I'm going to grab my second menu line, and I am going to move this up negative 5 pixels. So now if we look at it, there we go, we have our cross animation going on. The next thing that we want to do is change the background color of the nav bar itself, okay? So we're going to go ahead, we're going to go to background color, and we're just going to make sure that this is black as well, okay? And then we are going to grab the menu button, or the menu lines actually. So let's make a new sort of background color thing. But instead of hitting selected element, because that's only going to select one of them, right? I'm going to make sure that, I'm going to make sure that this selects elements of all the class. So I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to do background color, and I'm going to make sure that this says class. Okay, well, this is selecting all of them, so let's not do that. Let's just, okay, so let's just add a new thing to happen. Now I'm going to grab the nav bar, and I'm going to change the background color of the nav bar to be black, like that, okay? Now, our nav logo has completely disappeared, okay? So to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our style panel, and I'm going to pull in another image, and this is the white nav logo, okay? So I'm going to give this that same class of nav logo, okay? And it's just going to be set to display none, okay? Now that's selecting both of them. So let's go ahead and let's give this a class of maybe white, and then let's set this to be display none. So now if we go into our menu button again, and if we open this up, okay? Now our nav bar is going to become black, right? And then we're going to grab our second nav logo here. So I'm going to grab the second one, and I am going to display it, okay? Okay, and then I'm going to grab the first one and set the first one to be display none, okay? Like that. So now if we look at it, okay, well, that's not working so well, so let's go in our preview mode and see. Okay, so a couple of things aren't working. Let's go back to the menu button and let's hit selected element. I think that should make it work. Okay, so now if we look at it, there we go. Okay, perfect. Now we also want to change the menu line. So let's go ahead and change the background color for both of these as well. Make that white. And then I'm going to grab the other menu line and make that white as well. Okay, like that. So now if we play it, okay, perfect. So let's hit save, and let's go in here again. There we go. Okay. Now, sort of border on the nav menu seems a little bit harsh or a little bit too much. I'm just gonna make it 1 pixel. Okay, now another thing, what else do we need to do? Okay, we need to set up a close animation, okay? Because right now, it's only defining what happens when it's open, right? But when it closes, we want things to sort of appear like they were before. So let's create a new animation called menu button close. And in here, a couple of things are gonna happen. So we're gonna grab our menu lines and we're gonna move them, okay, back to 0 pixels. Okay, and then we're going to rotate them back to 0 pixels. We're going to set the background color to be black yet again. And then we are going to grab the nav bar and we're going to make sure that the nav bar also has a background color of white. And then we're going to have this nav logo appear again. So if I just say hit show for this one, and if I grab this other nav logo and if I hit hide for this one, so if I hit display none like that, then that should work. Make sure that both of these say selected element, otherwise they won't work. And I think that's it, but let's hit save and let's check it out. So I'm going to open the menu and then I'm going to close the menu. Okay, that looks perfect. That's exactly what we needed to happen. Our animation is working and all of our links are popping up and this logo is changing colors when really we're just replacing it with a different image. And that's really it. Okay, so that's it for this full website. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.